Today is the 50th victory day of Bangladesh. 50 years have gone by since that infamous victory for Bangladesh, which India achieved, of course. And to talk about this, I have a very special guest with me on the program today, Colonel Vijayant Thapar. He is the father of Captain Vijayant Thapar, Veer Chakra, who was a fourth generation army officer. At the early age of 15, he was selected for the National Defence Academy and commissioned on the 12th of December 1962 in the Maratha Light Infantry. He commanded a battalion of the Jammu and Kashmir Rifles. He was part of the 1965 war and Bangladesh war as well. It is a pleasure to welcome on Frank Talk Colonel Vijayant Thapar. Namaste, Colonel, and thank you for being here.
It is my pleasure, absolutely.
You know, Colonel, there's so much to talk about, and I would like to start with Captain Vijayant Thapar, but we'll probably take that a little while later because I want to dedicate a whole episode to Captain Vijayant Thapar and the ultimate sacrifice, and the entire nation knows him, and the entire nation is proud of you, your entire family, your son, because of what you have done for this nation. 4 generations in the army is unparalleled. It's I don't know. I have a lump in my throat now, and I have no words to express the gratitude that we as a nation would like to show to you and your family.
I have the honor to show you this book, which is Vijayant's biography, and all the young people who would be attending this audience. It is my request for them to read it because it is so motivating. So this is the biography of Vijay, about whom you've just spoken.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Colonel. And I assure you that I want to have a full episode on that book and also the life of Captain Vijayant Thapar, because the more we talk about it, the better it is for our nation. And we need to truly honor our heroes in every possible way that we can. That we take up on another day, but today we'll talk about Bangladesh. President Ramnath Kovind is in Bangladesh to commemorate 50 years of, Bangladesh's victory and everything that India has done, of course, as part of that victory itself. The 50th victory day of Bangladesh is today, and that's what I want to talk to you about because you are part of that particular war as well. And, so let's start from the beginning, Colonel. Let's talk about the circumstances that led to the war.
The reasons that led to the war, you said?
Absolutely, yes. The circumstances that led to the war.
Yes, that's all right. The reasons are well known, but nonetheless, I'll just recoup them for everybody. The first and the foremost reason was a cultural indifference which the West Pakistanis showed towards the East Pakistanis. They did not treat them as their equals. They treated them as a species that is even I would go to the extent of saying subhuman. Like they would call them machars. Some general would call a Bengali bureaucrat, monkey, come here, and that kind of a thing. So, whereas the Bengalis, they have a tremendous culture, and they have a tremendous lineage, and you can't treat them like this, the way they were treating them. So that was the real reason behind this whole thing. They did not think that the state of Pakistan can be ruled by a Bengali. Let's put it that clearly. Though they had won the elections hands down, and it was their right, Bangla Bandhu's right to be the prime minister, but they did not accept it, and therefore they made to try and get parity with them. They came out with a new stunt of making West Pakistan as one unit and East Pakistan as another unit. So they were not prepared to share political power with them. Economically, they were exploiting the East Pakistan at that time. They were exploiting them. Most of the exchange earnings, the revenues, they were earned by East Pakistan, but only a fraction was being spent on them. Then came the point about, besides economic exploitation, the point came about discrimination. In most of the government jobs, posts, armed forces, they had very little, very insignificant representation in the, which caused a hurt to them. Population is maximum, but in the jobs, that is the least amount given to them. Then there was an issue about the language. The language itself, as you would all know, Bengali is such a rich language, and that was being that was not given the same status as the languages, Urdu and other languages. So that was a big heartburn also. And ultimately, it was the fact that they were more secular in their outlook, and they were very radical in their outlook only. And therefore, there was a big problem, and the problem could not be sorted out till the nation broke. So that is the brief reasons. There are, if we go into the details, there are a whole lot of other things, but culturally or geographically, politically, economically, there was nothing common.
Absolutely.
So it was to happen.
Thank you, Colonel, for summing it up so beautifully. I mean, people have written books about it, fact volumes and so on and so forth. You've done such a wonderful job just explaining the entire process for us in under 3 minutes. That's fantastic. It's great for the youth as well, because today's generation, we are a very instant generation. We have instant noodles, super fast internet, and everything else. So everyone wants these, information to be consumed instantly. Thank you so very much. Moving on from there, Colonel. What were some of the significant moments of the war?
Significant moments of the war was, the most significant moment of the war was when Bhutto, who had no official standing in the scheme of things, but who started exerting great influence on Yahya Khan, who was the president. And therefore, though the villain of the piece became Yahya, but the real person behind the whole things happening in the way they happened was Bhutto, because he wanted to be the Prime Minister of Pakistan at all costs, Prime Minister or President of Pakistan at all costs. Therefore, he was not interested in the integrity of the nation, but he was interested in his own status, and he would not agree to anything. Really speaking, the choice was given to him. Choice was given to the president of that the assembly session, since they had the majority, must be held in Dhaka, but they refused point blank. So this was the first point where things started going wrong. Bhutto's interference and inaptness of Yahya Khan. That was the first beginning. Thereafter, they had this business of being very martial, mustached and all that sort of thing. And we'll sort out these machars and makkis and things like that through military force. Now that never works. So therefore, they started sending troops and started giving warnings. That was the second big thing that went wrong in the handling of the whole. The next was date that mattered was the 6th of March in 1971, when they decided to take military action against unarmed and poor countrymen on the other side of the border. They decided to stamp out with an iron fist and an army boot the rebellion that was, the dissent that was rising in Bengal, without taking the trouble of finding out the reason and eradicating that reason. Now, as a result, thousands of people were killed. An operation called Operation Searchlight was let loose on the unarmed poor civilians, and they were simply massacred. Massacred is the only word. And even when I reached there, skeletons and skulls and all these bodies, some rotten, lying here, there, and everywhere. It was such a repulsive and painful sight. because on one side you had this poor little feeble country folk, and on the other side, well-armed people just shooting them. There are instances. I have a wonderful book presented to me here. It is a compilation of everyday newspapers and events as they happened in Bangladesh at that time. And it is so painful how they bayoneted, how they killed women, men, and children, even children, so mercilessly. So that is the kind of the March, month of March. Then April, May, things started going against them. The Muktis, they started hitting them here, there, and all. Then, of course, came the decision by India because the economic load had become so high on our country that we couldn't afford it anymore. Of the people, refugees who were coming into India, constant stream of refugees, and we could not take it anymore. And the decision to interfere, stop this flow of refugees by military action was taken. Before that, Mrs. Indira Gandhi, then the Prime Minister, she had taken the decision of military action. And she had told General Sam Manekshaw, then the Chief of the Army Staff, that I want you to stop this. I want you to stop this through military action. Then he told her, Madam, do you know what it means? It means going to war. She said, it is acceptable to me. When she said that it is acceptable to me, then he brought out the real facts that month of March is over. April, May, the whole countryside will be full of rains and water, mud, and the army will just simply get bogged down. Also in the north, we have the Chinese. The passes would open, and then the Chinese will be able to interfere with it. So it's not the proper time to launch the operations. And finally, Mrs. Indira Gandhi understood the logic, and she said, okay, Sam, you go ahead and do it the way you want. And he went fully prepared. At November end, we were fully prepared, and we went in for the action. The result was in front of everybody. Absolutely. It became a victory, the like of which the world has not seen. In 13 days' time flat, a nation was created with the force of arms. First time it happened in ever since the Second World War. This kind of a thing has happened. And therefore, we pride ourselves in that. And it is a golden page of our history, more so of the military.
Absolutely. It indeed is. I mean, it's something that is unprecedented, something that has not happened before, something that has probably not happened again as well, and might not happen in the future too. So, Colonel, how did we go about outsmarting the Pakistani forces? What stands out for you? There are several stories, of course, there are a few short documentaries that are made about this, but what stood out for you?
For me, what stood out most was the quality of leadership of our higher direction of war. It was simply a wonderful coincidence that we had leaders like that. We had, at that time, Indira Gandhi, who gave the clear-cut instructions to go ahead. There was no ambiguity, no dilly-dallying. So she gave a clear decision that we have to go militarily into it, after putting the diplomatic arena in order. Second, we had Sam Manekshaw, the leader of which comes once in a decade or so, a leader like him. Sam Manekshaw was a leader of a altogether different class. Then we had Sagat Singh, a field commander, I must say, unlike any that we have seen in the field so far. Bold, wanting action, and decisive in his. We had General Jacob, who was the Chief of Staff, a wonderful staff officer who could handle this whole thing, and of course, General Arora. So leadership-wise, while we had an outstanding leadership, on the other side, there was an absolutely deplorable leadership. With that leadership, you couldn't have won. One thing is fighting on the field, the other thing is murdering and killing innocent people. The person who was in charge, he was a man who was called, whose name was Tikka Khan, and whose great, this thing was the butcher of Balochistan. So the army became so good at killing innocent people, harmless people, unarmed people, that when they had to face a proper professional army, they simply disintegrated. So the leadership, quality of leadership on both sides was altogether other sides of the spectrum. One very good, on the other it was a total debacle. So that was one of the most, one of the things that hit me very, very much. And I remember that. And then, of course, the morale of the army at that time, Arun, you won't believe me when I tell you, they were wanting to go. Just they wanted a green signal to go, get on and get on the objective. And that's how this victory came, this lightning speed.
Absolutely. So, Colonel, let's talk about another aspect. How did the war change your life? What changed after the war? You spoke about, the mutilated bodies that you saw and how it was, very depressing sight, and so many of these other issues. So, what changed after the war for you personally?
For me personally, I have reconciled to the fact that the enemy we are facing in the West, and even I have fought with the Chinese also. I've had an action with the Chinese. I think they are quite ruthless people, and we have to be equally tough with them. There's no question of, having a soft approach to them. They have to be hit, and they have to be hit hard. So that is my lesson from this, and I'm glad the way the army is now preparing for the round. God forbid if it happens, we will be able to handle it very properly. For me, it was an experience. It was more than a negative. It was a very positive experience, which made me feel lucky that I was a part of this campaign, which will not happen, the like of which will not happen again.
Absolutely. Colonel, for you, who were some of the unsung heroes, really? We all know of the real heroes, but then there are so many people behind the scenes who have done so much. Who are the real unsung heroes?
But actually speaking, in the dust and din of the battle, nobody knows the real heroes. They just go away, unseen, unnoticed. That's the unknown soldier, He's just forgotten in the passage of time. We don't even, at that moment of time when you are there, you think that, you are going to contribute so much to your country. But the luck of the draw is such that they go away unnoticed. We have tremendous attention given to the fighter pilots because they catch everybody's eye. We have tremendous to the tank commanders and the infantrymen going and capturing various. But there are others behind, without whom, like doctors, a lot of hospital staff, supply people. I know they are also over there, and they are also roughly. Rarely you will hear very much about their contribution, as you would this star contribution of, let's say, the bombers are going, fighters are going, the infantry people are going, Gorkhas, Rajputs, Marathas, and everybody. Those are the people who catch the eye. But those people who go, who are behind the scenes, or those who fight and go unnoticed, as again I'll say, in the dust and din of battle, they are the ones. who are not very well known. And there are a whole lot of them. But I think for every one known hero, there must be 10 of them who go unnoticed, unsung.
Very true. Very, very true, Colonel. Colonel, what was the reaction like in Bangladesh? Then East Pakistan, of course, when Bangladesh was liberated. What were the scenes like there?
Oh, you will not be able to believe what the scenes were. It would be like Diwali. I mean, the women, the men, the youth, they simply grabbed you and they wanted to do, show their joy in such a terrific way that it is one of those lasting images when I was going through the streets of both Chittagong and Dhaka, and I saw this crowd, just wanted to hug you, and you had liberated them, and they were so happy that the Pakistani army, the Pakistanis were called incidentally a bad word, like M and B words. Calling somebody a Punjabi was as bad as calling them that. So that was the kind of thing. And there was a spontaneous burst of joy the moment the surrender was announced from the radio. Everybody came out and they were sort of liberated from jails and all. They were so happy, shouting, "Joy Bangla, Joy Bangla."
And what were the scenes like in India, back home in India?
Well, in India, I don't know because I was in Bangladesh.
Yes, absolutely.
And I guess in India, it must have been equally, jubilations may be equal because we had won such a outstanding, brilliant victory. And some of the scenes that I remember, they are framed in my heart forever. There was a surrender ceremony in various cantonments. In our cantonment at Chittagong, the surrender ceremony took place. And that was something fantastic, to watch the enemy lay down his arms. And I don't know whether we will again get, hopefully we get a chance like that, but I think it's not likely to happen again because it will be at the cost of another division of the enemy's territory. That is one very great picture that is in my mind. And the other, of course, like I told you, those poor people dead and the amount of dead people lying all over.
Sure.
That was the other one.
Sure. Colonel, so did anything change in the army after this victory?
Yeah, of course, it's bound to change because the psychology after we had a traveling at the hands of the Chinese in 62 and again we had an action in 67, which was good action. We did well for ourselves. And it was only reinforced by this victory, out and out victory. The things that changed very much was the synergy between the three services, the Air Force, the Navy, and the Army. They worked as one good team and produced the results for you. Otherwise, there's a tough war. It was very evident in Pakistan. Their Air Force would not cooperate with the Army. And the result was they were shot over the skies. The Navy, our Navy did such a wonderful action, supported by the Air Force at times. And it was the way the Karachi harbor was blasted is one of the great battles for the naval people and for India for that matter. Same in the Air Force also. The air battles were very, in fact, the Pakistani Air Force was blown out of the sky over East Pakistan within 2 days or 3 days.
Absolutely. One final question before I let you go, Colonel. 50 years later today, what is it that comes to your mind when you look back at the war? How would you look back at the war?
Well, I look back at the war, firstly, as being one of those lucky people who could take part in it, because it is a historic, it's a golden page of our history. And By any chance, if we had missed this war, we would have been terribly sorry. Like when I was commissioned in 1962, I missed the Chinese war by 20 days, just 20 days. And that was a regret. We always had long faces that we couldn't take part. Though, of course, it was a big disaster for the Indian Army, but we still wanted to take part in it. So if we had been left out of this war again, it would have been a very big tragedy, particularly when you're heading for such a great victory. So that was how it has, I look at it. I also look at it that how cruel a human being can be to another human being. I mean, how animal-like you become, atavistic you become. How can you ever think of killing a child, for example? And the other thing, of course, is that it was a very, this thing is not much spoken about, but it was a military action during Searchlight, which was directed towards a community. That is the Hindu community. They wanted to kill them, and they thought that they are the agents, provocators, and therefore they must be eliminated. So lots of Hindus were killed. And the synergy between Mukti Bahini and the Mukti Yodhas and the army was so good that the results came almost immediately when the action started, full action, because intelligence started flowing and a lot of other advantages took place because the Mukti Sena prepared the ground for us. So it was, these are and the joy of being on the victorious side, particularly in the armed forces, is something, which only those who have taken part in battles, they can relish it. And we'll relish it till the last day of our life. That victory in Bangladesh.
Thank you so very much, Colonel. We are so proud of you. Thank you for the service to our nation. Thank you for everything that you and your family have done as well. Really, really filled with gratitude, and only thanks to you and everyone in your family.
In fact, I would also like to thank the countrymen, because you must always remember, everybody who's listening to me, that when an army man fights in the front, he is fighting there with the faith that his family, should he become a casualty, his family will be taken care of by the country. And that is the faith which was given to those people who went to fight. They never thought, no, they were never worried about their families, because they knew that the whole country is there to stand by them. And they fought and they carried out their mission. So I must also thank that the country has been behind us, and it is their encouragement. Battles may be fought with weapons, but battles are always won with the spirit of the soldier and the spirit of the armed forces. That spirit comes knowing that the whole nation is behind. So that is my request to all. Always look after the people in uniform and give them their due wherever it is.
Always, always, Colonel, and thank you for being so gracious as well. And we as a nation stand much stronger today because of people like you. And we sleep safely at night because of people like you, your son, your father, and your grandfather. Pleasure having you here on Bharata First. Colonel, thank you so very much for your words of wisdom.
Thank you, and Jai Hind.
Jai Hind. Jai Hind, Colonel. Have a good day ahead. Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Frank Talk. And well, what a wonderful discussion that we had here with the Colonel, a war veteran, someone who has lost his son serving the nation. He's a Veer Chakra. Captain Vijayant Thapar is the name that we all have heard and we all know. He's a Kargil war hero. And I would like to do an interaction about Captain Vijayant Thapar sometime in the future as well. And the Colonel has agreed to that. Thank you all for being here on this live broadcast and witnessing this great conversation. If you like the content, please like, subscribe, and share the video as well so that more people get to know about Bharata First. That's it from me. See you again next time.